Good afternoon, my YouTube viewers. It is Crystal here. In this video is going to be lesson 1 of my advanced Excel course. If you haven't taken my basic Excel course and my intermediate Excel course, I would highly recommend that you take those courses as they are in my playlist. And this advanced Excel course is going to be comprised of 6 lessons. And so this is lesson 1 of the Excel course. You should already know how to open a file, create a new file, edit a file, close a file, and manage a file. If you don't know how to do that, then I would recommend you take my basic Excel course, because that will teach you how to do that. And then my intermediate Excel course will teach you how to do things as well. So you should already know how to open a file. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go directly into Excel. So we're going directly into Excel, and what I've done is a project timeline. And what I've done with this project timeline is this was created in the intermediate Excel course. So if you would like to know how to make a project timeline, you can go to the intermediate Excel course and I will show you how to do that. So whenever I have completed this video and created a new playlist and uploaded the video into the playlist, then the lesson will be complete. So I've entered the end date of today as the completion of the lesson, because when I've completed this video, the lesson will be complete. So in lesson 1, we're going to be talking about some programming techniques. One technique that we're going to be talking about is lambda functions. So I have actually created a page that's just going to have lambda functions in it. The thing about lambda functions is it sort of reminds me of the Python programming language. I don't know if you program in Python, but if you program in Python or even have taken a course in Python, then what lambda is lambda lets you create a one-line module, a one-line function that doesn't even have a name. So what lambda does in Excel is lambda lets you create a function that's not already in the Excel workspace. And then so you can create a function and you can give it a name. So this is a function that I have created, and I have called it calc gross profit. So that's what you're going to do, is you're going to calculate the gross profit. So the formula to calculate the gross profit is lambda. So that's telling you that you are creating a function that's not already in Excel. And so it's going to be brackets, revenue, comma, cost, comma, revenue minus cost. And then so you give it an example of 175. So your revenue is 100 and your cost is 75, and your gross profit is going to be 100 minus 75, which is 25. And then so what you have to do is you have to take your lambda function and you have to give it a name and you have to manage it. So you go into the formulas tab, and then you go into name manager, and that's going to be under define names. You go into name manager. So I've already given this formula a name, and I've called it calc gross profit. And then I'm giving it the formula. It's equals lambda brackets revenue, comma, cost, comma, brackets revenue minus cost. And then so that is your, so whenever you put the formula into the name manager, you have to make sure that the values that you use to actually create the formula are not in there. So if you see here, it is lambda brackets revenue, comma, cost, comma, brackets revenue minus cost, brackets. But when you look over here where you have created the lambda function, it's lambda brackets revenue, comma, cost, comma, brackets revenue minus cost, brackets. And then you have the two numbers that you're going to use. So 100 for revenue, 75 for cost, and it's going to calculate the gross profit being 25 in this instance. So that is actually how you're going to create a lambda function. And we're going to use a lambda function in this lesson. So I've also created some spreadsheets that are going to be used in this lesson and perhaps even in this course. So now the spreadsheet that I've created is going to be sales reps. So you've got your sales reps ID, you've got your sales reps, you've got your town and center, town and city, and then you've got your sales. And then so this is just some numbers that I made up. It's just made up data, but then you've got their sales, which is how much they sold. We've also got another spreadsheet called products. And this is another spreadsheet that I've made where I've just put some data in there. So you've got your product ID, your product description, your revenue per unit in pounds, your cost per unit per pounds, and your cost and your gross profit per unit in pounds. So this is just information that I've made up just to run the program. And you can see right here, we've used our lambda function being calc gross profit brackets C2, comma D2. So C2 is your revenue per unit and your D2 is your cost per unit. And so C2 minus D2 equals 100. So this is just a very simple example of how to do it. So you can create a lambda function for anything you want. And it's probably better to create it for complex formulas. So whenever I do statistics work, calculating statistics can be a little bit trying. So if you're calculating statistics, then you might want to create a lambda function for that as well. So I've got another spreadsheet called orders. And this is other anonymized data. So you've got your customer ID, your order ID, your product description, your unit sold, and the date. So we've got another spreadsheet called customers. So you've got customer ID, you've got your customers, you've got your email address, and you've got your sales reps, and you've got sales rep ID, and then you've got notes. You've got another spreadsheet called grades. So again, you've got the name of the student. So we'll just call this student name. You've got your student name, your score, and your grade. And then so basically you've got your score for the student name, and on the grade, you've got an if statement. And so this is going to be, if the if has only one question, then it's going to be if. But if it has more than one question, then it's going to be ifs. So if B2 is greater than or equal to 90, it's going to be A. If B2 is greater than or equal to 80, it's going to be B. If B2 is greater than or equal to 70, it's going to be C. If B2 is greater than or equal to 60, it's going to be D. And if V2 is less than 60, it's going to be F. And then so that is how you can calculate grades. And then if we wanted to, we could actually create a lambda function to calculate grades if we wanted to, but I didn't. So now we're going to get into lesson 1. This is all the information that we're going to be covering in lesson 1. So the first thing we're going to talk about is dynamic arrays. Dynamic arrays in Excel are formulas that automatically return multiple values in adjacent cells, resizing dynamically as the source data changes. So the functions that we're going to be going into on dynamic arrays are filter, unique, sequence, XLOOKUP, sort by, and XMatch. So filter allows the user to extract data based on specific criteria. Sort sorts the contents of an range or array. Unique extracts the unique values from a range or array, returning a dynamic list that updates automatically when the source data changes. So sequence generates a list of sequential numbers in an array, which can be arranged in rows, columns, or both. It supports optional arguments for start value and step size and works with dynamic arrays that spill automatically into adjacent cells. XLOOKUP replaces earlier functions of HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and lookup. And I will say I use VLOOKUP a lot in my day job, and the reason why is because the version of Excel that I'm using in my day job is Excel 16, and XLOOKUP is in the newer versions of Excel, so I still have to use VLOOKUP, which I am using. It searches a range or array for a match and returns the corresponding value from another range or array. Sort by sorts a range or array based on the values in another range or array without changing the original data order. It is especially useful in sorting one or more criteria dynamically. So randarray generates an array of random numbers, and XMatch finds a relative position of a value in a range or array, offering more flexibility of the original match function. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some advanced logic formulas. So advanced logic in Excel uses functions like if, and, or, not, XLOOKUP, and index-match to automate decisions, analyze data, and create dynamic condition-based formulas. The above functions have been covered in my intermediate Excel course. So if you don't know how to use if, and, or, not, XLOOKUP, and index and match, then I would suggest you go back to my intermediate Excel course and take that course because it's free and it's on YouTube and it's in my playlist, and it will show you how to use those functions. Ifs is used to test multiple conditions without having to test multiple if statements. It returns the value corresponding to the first true condition it finds. Switch compares an expression against a list of values and returns the result for the first match found. A default value can be set if no match is found. So now what we're going to talk about is error handling, and we did actually cover error handling in my intermediate Excel course. So if you want to learn more about error handling, I would highly recommend you take the Intermediate Excel course. Error handling in Excel is the process of identifying, managing, and preventing errors in formulas and data to ensure accurate calculations and reliable reporting. Error handling is covered in my Intermediate Excel course. If error is used to handle errors by returning a custom value when an error occurs, instead of using Excel's default error message, such as #div, #na, #value, etc. Let assign names to values or calculations inside a formula, improving readability and performance. We're also going to be discussing name formulas. So name formulas can enhance the usability and maintainability of spreadsheets. Key points to consider when using name formulas are: 1, you define the names; 2, you create the formulas; 3, you have dynamic array formulas; 4, you have name formulas; and 5 is best practices. So a lambda function is a function that we talked about just a few minutes ago. An Excel lambda function allows the user to create his own functions without using Excel's programming language, VBA. So lambda does the following. It creates a reusable name functions inside Excel. It eliminates repeated long formulas across worksheets. It works without VBA, macros, or JavaScript, and it supports up to 253 parameters. And so we already created, I showed you how to create a lambda function in the very beginning of this video. But the thing about it is, if it's a small-ish function, then, and you don't want to use VBA, then you can create a function in lambda and give it a name, and then you can call that function over and over again. So we also have spill ranges. A spill range in Excel is a set of cells automatically filled by a dynamic array formula. It can be referenced using the spilled range operator #. A spilled range occurs when a formula returns multiple values that automatically spill into adjacent cells. And then we have dependency tracing. To trace dependencies in Excel, use the built-in trace dependence feature or VBA scripts. So VBA is Virtual Basic for apps. Now we're going to go over the demonstration and cover all of the programming functions that were covered in the previous page. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the spreadsheets that I have used in this lesson and in this course to use the spreadsheets. So the first thing we want to do is we want to filter all sales reps in Manchester. So you come over here to E2 and you type filter brackets, and then you go into the sales rep page. So you would go into the sales rep page, and then you would find A1 to A26, and then you're going to be looking on C1 to C26 to try to find the value Manchester. And what it's going to do, it's going to call up everything that says Manchester. And then if it doesn't say Manchester, then you're just going to say it's going to come up with no results. So we've got Manchester here, but so we've got like, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You've got 7 values or 7 rows that say Manchester. But let's just try Stoke. So if you try Stoke, there's only 2 rows that say Stoke. And let's just try Reading. And there's no results for Reading. So we're just going to go back to Manchester. So you can see the only place that you actually have the formula is on E2, but then the data spills into E2 to H8. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use the sort function, and we're going to sort the sales reps in ascending order. So we sort the sales reps in ascending order. So we say sort brackets sales reps A2 to D26 to 6. So A2 to D26 is the table that you're going to sort on. 2 is the second column, so you're going to be sorting on the second column. And then 1 means that you're going to be sorting it by their name. You're going to sort it by their name. But let's say that you want to reverse sort it. So if you want to reverse sort it, you're going to say -1 is going to be to reverse sort it. And so now, instead of Alan Shearer being on top, you're going to have Wayne Rooney on top. And then so, and the next thing that we can do, let's say you want to sort on their sales. So that sales are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be the 4th column. So now, and then because -1 means that it's going to be sorted in reverse order. We're going to just sort it in ascending order. So again, you can see the way we sorted it in ascending order, but we're going to go back to column 2. So we're going to just sort it on the names again. So that's how you sort your sales reps. So now what we're going to do is we're going to example of a unique to determine how many cities or towns are covered. So you come over here to E36, and unique tells you how many towns or cities are covered. So it's going to be, again, you're going to go to sales reps. It's going to say unique, and then you're going to go to sales reps, and then you're going to go to column C, and on column C, you're going to check for, you're going to check false, means that it's going to be an exact match. So if you want to know more about unique, you can look at it and you can do a search on unique in Excel, and it will tell you more about the code, specifically with Microsoft. But it's going to be looking for an exact match. So you've got, these are all the unique values in my spreadsheet. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've got 7 unique values. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use a sequence to make a matrix from sales rep data. So sequence, comma, rows, brackets, rows, brackets. Again, you're going to go back to sales rep, and it's going to be A2 to C26. And the reason why it's A2 to C26 is because I added another column. And then the columns, so your rows are going to be A2 to C26. Your columns are going to be the same, sales rep A2 to 26, and it's going to be comma 1, comma 1. So you can do a search on sequence in Microsoft documentation, and that will tell you how the best way to use that function. But when we use the function this way, you have 3 rows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, because we're only using A2 to C6 instead of A2 to D6. So with 3 rows and 5 columns, you're going to have 15. Next thing that we're going to search for is XLOOKUP. Now, XLOOKUP occurs in the newer versions of Excel, so I cannot even use XLOOKUP in my day job because they use Excel 2016, and XLOOKUP is not in Excel 2016. The thing about XLOOKUP is the fact that it's a newer function, and it's designed to replace HLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, and match index. And so in my day job, I have to use VLOOKUP because I haven't got the new version of Excel yet. So what we're going to do here is XLOOKUP brackets E50. So E50 is going to be S00001. And then sales reps, A2 to A26. Oh, yeah, A2 to A26. So you go back to sales reps, A2 to A26. And then you say sales rep. That's what you want to test for. Sales reps is the column of data where you're actually looking for data. And A2 to A26, it uses absolute referencing. And the reason why it's using absolute referencing, so every time you use that code, it's going to look for A2 to A26, which is absolute referencing. And then so we're looking for the absolute referencing of A2 to A26. And then we're going to put that data in B, and we're going to locate the data in B2 to B26. So we come over here to sales rep, and you can say B2 to B26 is actually the sales rep. And then so what's going to happen, it's going to look up the value of E50, which is S00001, and then it's going to return the value that corresponds with S00001, which is Kevin Keegan. And so you're going to copy and paste that down. So now we're going to look just another value, which is S00005, which is John Stone's, S00006, which is David Beckham. You've got S00015, which is Bobby Moore, S00020, which is Rio Ferdinand. You've got S00021, which is Paul Gascioni, and you've got S00025, which is Teddy Sherrington. So, and you see that we have a change in the values in column E have changed, but the values in sales rep column A are absolute, and the values in sales rep column B are absolute as well. They're absolute referencing, so you have to make sure that you've got your dollar signs there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use the sort by sales rep by sales. So we're going to sort by sales. We're going to use the sort by function. So it's going to be bracket sales reps B2 to D26. So we're going to come over here, sales reps, you're going to B2 to D26, which is their name, their town, and their sales. And then it's going to be again, the sales reps D2 to D26. So you're going to sort it. You're going to look for the name, which is column B, and then you're going to look for the sales, which is column D, and then -1 means it's descending. And then you're going to look for the names again, which is column B, and then it's going to be 1 ascending. So your sort by is different from sort. So you're sorting it by the name, and you're sorting it by the matrix is going to be B2 to D26, and then you're sorting it by the name, and then you're sorting it by the sales, and then you're sorting it by the name. So when we use this function, you get Bobby Moore is the name, and in London, and the sales are 120,000. So you want to get the highest sales. And then because it's a -1, it's going to be a reverse ascending, so that's descending. And then so you have Frank Lampard, which is 110,000. You have John Terry, which is 100,000. You have Ashley Cole, Gareth Bell are going to be 95,000. And since Ashley Cole is before Gareth, then Ashley Cole is going to come before Gareth to give you 95,000. Then you have Alan Shearer, Jimmy Graves, John Stone, Rio Ferdinand. They're going to be 90,000. So you're sorting it by the sales and then by the name. And then you're going to have Bob Gascoigne is in Newcastle. Then you have Paul Scholes is in Manchester with 85,000. So it goes all the way down. So that's just a way that you can sort by. So you sort by the salary and the name. So the salary is going to be sorted in descending order because it's -1. And the name is going to be sorted in ascending order because it's 1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a random array. So we're going to use true for whole numbers and false for decimals. So I wanted it a whole number random array. So we're going to create a random array of 5 rows by 5 columns, and a number between 0 and 50, and true means we're going to be having whole numbers. So we've created a random array of 5 rows by 5 columns, 0 to 50 with whole numbers. And so you can do a search on Google for a random array under the Microsoft documentation, and that will tell you how to do it. Another thing we're going to talk about is X-match. So with X-match, we're going to find the position of the sales rep. So you have to specify the match type. So 0 is an exact match, -1 is an exact match or next smaller item, 1 is an exact match or next largest item, and a wildcard match is star, a question mark, and a tilde sign has special meaning. So the first thing you have your sales rep, which is text, and then you have Gary Lineker. So Gary Lineker we want to know what position Gary Lineker is in the sales rep spreadsheet. So we do a search and we say X match, brackets F90. So that's the cell that we're looking for. And we're going to be looking for sales rep B2 to B26. We're going to look for an exact match. So we come over here to sales reps, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Gary Lineker is in position 4. So we're going to come over here. We're going to change it again. And we're going to say Frank going to say Frank Lampard, or maybe I got his name wrong. I could have done that wrong. So Frank Lampard is position 10. So we go back into, so we look for Frank Lampard, and you can see that he's position 10 as well in the spreadsheet. We can do another check for Wayne Rooney. Check for Wayne Rooney. He's going to be in position 13. So we go over here to sales reps again, and you can see Wayne Rooney is position 13. So you can put any number that you want in there. And then if we say Mickey Mouse, so it says NA, so it can't find Mickey Mouse. So what we could have done is we could have done like an if error. Could have put an if error in there, but I didn't do that. But if you want to put an if error in there, you can. So we've got Wayne Rooney. Next thing we're going to talk about is advanced logic. And so the two functions that we're going to be talking about in advanced logic is the if statement, which we've already talked about earlier, and the switch statement, which replaces grades with words. So basically what I've done is I've copied and pasted the data from the spreadsheet onto this spreadsheet. And so you've got the name, you've got the score, and you've got the grade. And so we've used an if statement for the grade, which we already talked about that a few minutes ago. But just for clarity, we'll say ifs. So if it's ifs, it's more than one criteria. But if it's only one if, it's only one criteria. So ifs brackets, F100 is greater than or equal to 90, comma A, comma F100 is greater than or equal to 80, comma B, comma F100 is greater than or equal to 70, comma C, comma F100 is greater than or equal to 60, comma D, comma F100 is less than or equal to 60, comma F. And so what that does is that takes their grade in column F, the score in column F, and it converts it to a grade. Now, if I had wanted to, I could have created a lambda function and called it find grade. But I didn't. But you could, if you want to, you can create it to a lambda function. And then we have here Excel comments. And then so basically we're going to use the switch statement to replace one value with another value. So we say switch brackets G100, that's your grade, comma A is excellent student, comma B is a good student, comma C is an average student, comma D is needs more study, comma, and F is must retake course. And so we've used this switch statement, and we've copied the if statement all the way down to the end of the list of students, and we've copied the switch statement all the way down to the list of students as well. If you're not sure about how to copy and paste, then I would recommend that you go back and you take my basic Excel course, because that's in there. So now we're going to have examples of error handling. You're going to say, we're going to use the if error function, and the if error handling was actually covered in my intermediate Excel course. So if you would like to know more information about error handling, I would suggest that you go back and you take my intermediate Excel course. So we've got number 1, number 2, and answer. So what you're going to do is you're going to take number 1, number 2, and then the if error, F128 divided by F129, comma, division error. So we've got a division error in there, and the reason why is you can't divide a number by 0. But so in column G, you've got 75 as number 1 and 5 as number 2. So 128 divided by 129 is 15. And then column H, you've got number 1 is 75 and number 2 is 10. And then you have 7.5. And then now what we're going to do is the let function. So let A 128, B 129, A plus B. So the value at A is, so F28 is value A, F29 is value B, and you add A and B together. So 75 plus 0 is 75. We copy that over. 75 plus 5 is 80. And 75 plus 10 is 85. And so basically that's just an example of how to use the let function. So now we're going to use the lambda function, and we're going to use the function that I created earlier on in the lesson. So we're going to calculate the gross profit. And so basically we have saved the lambda function in the spreadsheet under this page that says lambda functions, and the only function that we have saved is called calculate gross profit. You can make any lambda function that you want, but I just decided to use the spreadsheets that I already had on hand, and I decided that I was going to calculate gross profit. So your revenue is 100,000, your cost is 80,000, and your gross profit is going to be 20,000. So what we do is we say calc gross profit, which is a lambda function that we have already created, and we're going to use 135 is value 1 and 136 is value 2. So 100,000 minus 80,000 is 20,000. But if you want to say 150,000, then it's going to calculate it to be 70,000. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about spill ranges. And so you're going to use the spill operator, which is a hash symbol for your spill ranges. So we're going to find the unique values in our sales rep page, sales rep spreadsheet, which is going to be C2 to C26, and false means it's going to be exact spelling or something like that. But you can look up unique in the Microsoft documentation and Google. It'll be in Google. It will tell you how to write that code and what false means. And so we say unique sales reps, and it gives you a spill range of, I think it's 7 values. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to sort all of these unique values. So you're going to say sort brackets 140 hash mark. So you're going to sort that list of names using the hash mark. Now we're going to talk about dependency tracing. And so what we're going to do for dependency tracing, I'm going to come over here and you're going to go to formulas, and then you're going to do trace dependence. Okay, so try it again, trace dependence. And then so you just go to formulas and then you do trace dependence. So it tells you that it's using revenue per unit, cost per unit, and the gross profit per unit. So 300 minus 200 is 100. So basically that would come in if you handy if you had a complex spreadsheet with lots of formulas in it and something wasn't working right. then you could use the trace dependencies in that situation. And so we're also going to create a dynamic reporting table. And so in this dynamic reporting table, we're going to check the city or town of London. So basically in your dynamic reporting table, it's going to be if error. So if it's an error, it's going to say no results. And then so we're going to sort the data and we're going to filter the data. So you're going to filter out all the data for sales reps A1 to D26. That's the range of data that you're going to be looking for. And then what you're going to be looking for is every value from C1 to C26 is B171, which in this instance is London. And you're going to be looking for column 4, and then it's going to be -1. So you're going to be looking for the column 4 is going to be the salary, I think. So yeah, column 4 is going to be your salary, and then it's going to be -1 means it's going to be in descending results. And so if you don't have anybody in London, then it's going to say no results. So right now we're looking for London, but let's just look for Stoke. So you've got 2 people in Stoke, and then let's look for where else? Newcastle. Let's look for Newcastle. Got 2 people in Newcastle. Let's look for Reading. There's no results in Reading. So we're just going to go back to London. And now the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to find the top 10 sales reps, because we've been using the sales rep spreadsheet most of the time. So to find the top 10 sales reps, you say take, brackets, sort, bracket sales reps A2 to D26. It's going to be top number 4, which is the 4th column, and -1, which means it's sorted in descending order, and 10, which is going to be the top 10 rows. So these are your top 10 sales reps, and it's sorted in descending order. So Bobby Moore has made £120,000, going all the way down to Bobby Charlton, who's made £85,000. So that completes this lesson. We've covered everything in the lesson that was on the lesson plan. So I hope that you got something meaningful out of this lesson, and I hope to be making lesson 2 for you very soon.